Welcome to the Perspective Podcast, where we embrace open dialogue from different perspectives about entrepreneurship, relationships, and education.
And this open dialogue is needed, especially today, as we live in a Twitter finger society where everyone seems to care more about getting their point across than they are about hearing the other person's perspective.
If you're ready to grow your business, your relationships, and your personal development, stick with us here at the Perspective Podcast, because sometimes in life, to get to the next level, you just need a different perspective.
If I look like what I've been through, I'd be roadkill. Tell me off of the pavement, I'm reaching from the...
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Mouzon. Got my boy T here with me. Say what's up.
What's going on, family?
Guys, we are back for another week, and we're doing new stuff, right? Always innovating, always changing, right? We're up on season 3 now, so we knew once we added this video component to it that, you know, you guys were going to get more value, get a chance to see our faces now, see our expressions, all of those things. And now we're taking it one step further, and we're saying, you know what? Let's bring on some guests. Right? You guys might be tired of hearing us. You might be tired of just hearing me and T go back and forth. So we're like, well, let's mix it up. Let's bring on some people, because, you know, when we have these conversations, T and I, about life, about industry, about commerce, about all types of topics, we also, in our lives, we network with people. We have friends. We have, you know, people that bring us information and give us information. And so when we're talking about it, we're like, hey, you know, who can we bring on about this topic? You know, if we start jamming about something, we're like, hey, who do we know that we can bring on and kind of give some resources and have some dialogue and give their perspective. And just so happens over the past few weeks, we've been having this crypto, blockchain, NFT, Bitcoin trading conversation, Terell and I on the side. So we're like, you know, maybe we start like a blockchain, crypto type of, you know, series for perspective, because this is something that people have a lot of different opinions on. There's a lot of different perspectives that are out there. So we wanted to, you know, start the conversation here and go with a little bit of a series. So T, we have a special guest on today.
I'm
gonna let you introduce him, because from what you've told me, this is the guy that we all need to know.
This is the guy that put me down the rabbit hole. So I'll do a quick introduction. Funny, I guess it could technically be a funny story. So I met Danny at work, and I remember doing our first meeting, and I was like kind of trying to figure out, I was like, oh, you know, am I going to like working with this guy? You know what I mean? Am I going to like hang it out with him? You know, because, you know, at work, you know, you're around somebody more than your own family. So you got to actually like the person, right? And we were talking, everything was going good. And then I was like, well, what do you love? What are you passionate about? You know, because I'm one of those type of people. I want to figure out who you are. And then we started talking about crypto. And then at that point, I was so, you know how they say, you had me at hello? That movie, it was like the explosion of just enthusiasm and knowledge. And not just because, you know, crypto is one of those things where it's like, I got this over here, got that over there. You can do this. I heard he can make money like that. I heard this utility coin, all these different things. But the thing that I really, really stuck with me about Danny was how practical it was. Like, I literally walked out of an hour-long conversation that, you know, when we first kind of got, you know, met up, it was like, I want to do that. Like, I like that. Like, tell me more. And at that point in time, I was like, always, hey, man, what about this, man? Hey, I heard about this. And what I did was I kept bugging him so much to the point of, it was right around the time actually we started the podcast, like right at that time, like early on. And I said, remember I said to you, I said, hey, I want to have my boy Danny on as the very first guest. Like, I got to give Danny the first guest spot, right? And now here we go, season 2 seasons later, and we got Danny on. That's what I'm talking about. We got him on. So, you know, the man, the myth, the legend. I'm gonna give it over to Danny. You know, tell us about your story, your crypto journey, I was gonna say Bitcoin journey, but that would sound like a novice, right? Because it's so much more than just Bitcoin. Because, man, this guy got me so fired up about it, and he has so much knowledge to drop. So I'm excited to have you today, Danny, man. Welcome to the Perspective Podcast.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. Wow. I feel like I was just introduced at a TED Talk. That's amazing. And I really hope I don't disappoint your listeners. Okay, so how I got into it, I mean, I've always been kind of into like fringe ideas and kind of, I've always seen problems with the system. I'm just one of those kids who got, problems with authority and see problems with the system. And
Danny,
I
you
was
fit
just,
right in. Let me just cut
Yes.
you off. Like you fit right in. Like
We're gonna stop you right
yeah,
there.
just,
Yeah.
let's go. Like this is
Yeah,
is
so
where we're at.
I've always had a problem with just the way that things work. And I always thought the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and how our money isn't really backed up by gold. I mean, I'm just one of those intellectual people to the point where it depresses me. And when I worked at T-Mobile and I'm, slanging cell phones, and my coworker who's this young kid, like I don't remember how young he is, but he's like about 4 years younger than me or something like that. And at the time I think I'm 28 or so. And he's telling me, he's like, bro, have you ever heard of Bitcoin? And so I was like, yeah, I've heard of it before because I used to be really big into the rave scene. And a buddy of mine has, purchased some party favors online with Bitcoin. He was telling me about it, but at the time it was trading for about $300 a coin. And so when he was telling me about it, I was super confused, just like anybody else is. Like, okay, so if it's $300 a coin, like, how does that work? So, because like the idea of something being more valuable than a dollar was like just weird, right? It's like, okay, so it's currency, but it's worth $300 a coin. At that sense, is like, so a penny of it is worth $300. Like, you're so confused, just the terminology just kind of gets you going. So my buddy kind of explained it to me that at the time he was purchasing it on Circle, and he would go on the Silk Road and you can just buy anything you want on there. So I didn't really look into it further. It was just kind of something that I heard. Fast forward, a few years later, I'm working at T-Mobile, and now this random kid's telling me about it. And I look at the price, and now it's like, like 2,000. And so he's like, man, if you invest, they're saying, the analysts are saying it's going to go to 5,000 by the end of the year. So if you invest now, like, you'll probably double up. And I'm like, so you're telling me if I buy $2,000 worth right now, I can have 4,000 by the end of the year? And in my mind, I was like, investments are slow growing, like, whatever it is, like, yeah, you can invest, but it's really a rich man's game because you get such a small, like 10% on 1,000. It's like, whoop-de-doo, you made 100, right? But at the time, my mind was just kind of like in that mindset. And then that's whenever I fell into the rabbit hole, just like Terell says, there's somebody who unplugged me as well. And
in the Matrix, man.
Yeah, man. And so I fell into the rabbit hole, man, and we kind of fell into it super heavy. I started looking into it, and it's just amazing technology. I saw the benefits of it, and then I just became a believer. So I took money out of. What's up?
Oh no, I was just gonna ask Danny, what year was it that you said like you got introduced when it was
2000,
like
2017. Oh, Silk Road was that was like probably 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 15 to 16 or something. And then, yeah, look around then. I can't remember exactly, but.
Got you. And then it was T-Mobile in like 2017 that got you into like really saying like, okay, what is this?
Right. So I bought my first Bitcoin in June.
Yeah.
I remember it was like a little shy of a one full one because I wanted to put in 2 racks because I was taking it out of my 401k. Which to me at that time, man, okay, so like here's another good story for you guys. So I remember talking to a buddy of mine because I was about to make this decision. I mean, I've read into it, I've done my DD, as the cool kids say, on Reddit Wall Street Bets. And, I've looked into it, and I really believe in the idea. And just, I know, so my logic was this, is that you have a peer-to-peer network as far as money is concerned, right? Now, you're familiar with torrenting movies and free movies. Like, that has never died. No matter what people do, no matter how people get punished for it, whatever it is, they can't stop it. And that's just free movies. And there's an ideal there where we should be able to share our content no matter what, right? Peer to peer. Now, I thought about that, and the logic behind my thinking was, okay, if people are willing to do this just for free movies, now just imagine if it's money. Like, when people start believing that and the problems that it solves, like, you have these fringe guys who believe like, oh yeah, we should be able to share content no matter what. It's my content, Now, you take that idea, now you put a monetization behind it, that type of motivation behind it. That's if you ask me, that's like exponential, right? Like that's worth way more. So that was my logic behind it. I go and tell my friend, and I'm on the phone with him. This is my buddy who's like, he's very clear-headed. You know, he kind of like, what's the word? I run all these ideas by him because he's been my one friend who where I'm always up here and he's kind of like levels me out a little bit, you know, brings me to
that's
reality.
Chris for me.
There we go. There we go.
He's gonna poke 10,000 holes in it.
We all need that friend, right? Like, we all need him.
Anybody watch this podcast, that's Chris.
Right. So I'm telling him about it. I'm telling him this idea, and I'm like, hey man, like I'm about to do something that's kind of scary. Like people, you know, I'm about to withdraw from our 401k. I'm about to make this, because to me at that time, like the 401k was just some money sitting there waiting for me to turn 60. You know, like I want to make that money work now.
Yeah.
And now this is not financial advice, guys. This is just what I did. As a matter of fact, looking back, it might have been pretty foolish, but you know, I don't recommend anybody do this, but this is just my story. So, you know, I talked to Fidelity and I tell them, I was so naive at the time. I asked them if I could buy Bitcoin through them. And they're just like,
what?
Nah, dog, what you talking about? Hey, kid, calm down. You know what I mean? Here's your $2,000, right? So I go ahead and withdraw that and I buy my first, this is like a little shy of under a Bitcoin. And my plan was to try and trade it, you know, to 1 Bitcoin. So I'm like, I'm gonna just trade Bitcoin, like easy, buy high, buy low, sell high, right? It's no big deal. And I went from like 0.98 to like 0.90 Bitcoin trying to do that. So I was like, all right, this is not working. So I was like, let me just hold this for a while. And then I found altcoins. You know, I got on YouTube, everyone's talking about altcoins. They're popping off left and right, this and that. So I remember looking into one called Mouzon, which if you got right now is doing pretty well, I think. Actually, no. When I tell y'all about the prices at this time, it's actually not trading at these prices, but it's actually gotten back to a relatively interesting spot. But so Mouzon at the time, they're talking about starting a decentralized exchange. And, you know, there was a lot of, at the time, that was like a big hubbub, and that was huge. Like, you know, because the whole idea of crypto is that you're in charge of your funds, but then you got to go through a third party, right? You basically got to go through a bank to trade, right? You got to trust them. And if they get hacked, you got to trust that they'll give you your money back or they're insured. So decentralized exchanges, Mouzon was talking about starting one. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I didn't know shit about it. You know, I just saw a YouTube video of some girl explaining it. And so I was like, why not? $300? Let's just go ahead. And so I got onto, at the time I was trading on Bitfinex, which was one of my favorite exchanges to trade on. But we'll go into that a little bit later. Get on Bitfinex, buy $300 worth of Mouzon. And then all of a sudden the next day I'm sitting on $1,200. Mouzon went from $3 to $12, like basically overnight. And I was just like, what? Like, you know, then my mindset started changing and started.
Then you're hooked.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, you hit the.
But here's the thing: is that like what a lot of people don't tell you, what won't tell you, is especially these guys selling courses, is that you're hooked to gambling. Is what's going on.
Yes,
that's what we talk about.
Yeah, so you get hooked onto that high, and then you start chasing home runs. And at the time, and here's the most fucked up part about it, is that it's like you're a frog being boiled slowly, because you chase that high and the market will allow you to do that for so long that you think this is the norm, until it isn't. And then you have a confirmation bias that's way harder to break because you have results behind your bias. And whenever that starts to change on you, so that's kind of how it goes.
Let me stop you there, Danny, because like that is a huge thing that T and I talk about a bunch when people get into any new space, but specifically something like crypto, and it does give you that high like you're gambling. We just had an experience, and I was telling T this, like I don't gamble at all. I actually, like I'm so far away from it. First time I went to Vegas, right, lost $20 on the blackjack table in 5 seconds. I was like, this ain't for me. Like I'm done. I'm never doing this ever again. And like I've been good. Like I'll walk through casinos, won't do anything. I had one experience in Vegas where like I got pulled a little bit and I went to a slot machine. Somebody had given me like a free $20. I played the free $20. I made like 80. I'm disciplined enough to be like, this is great, took my money. But then the next day walking through the casino, it was already there. I was like, should I play? Should I play? I mean, I got 60 extra bucks. It was free. Like automatically in your mind, you get to this place of like, man, like I just hit it. I could do that again. And then, right, then it just takes over. So that is a real thought and a real feeling that starts to happen, that gambling, that high of like, I hit something big, because that's what people really want. People still have a lottery mentality. They still have the, I want to win the big thing just by doing a little bit. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and also, I mean, you hear these stories, right? Like, and like Danny alluded to it with the courses, right? You hear these stories of people hitting it big, and you're just thinking, if like for the most part, well, I can't say for the most part, a lot of people still actually play the lotto, right?
a lot of
the
people
lotto.
do. A lot
like,
of people
yes.
actually do that.
So that's true. I was gonna say not many. That's a lie. So people still have that, like you said, the lotto mentality. But now it feels like there was a word for it. You almost feel justified doing it on this side because you have big institutions also. You think they're doing it. So you're like, I'm not out there with my 13 numbers or 7 I don't know how many numbers it is. Somebody's going to correct me in the comments at one point. But it's one thing doing your random numbers. It's another thing having like, oh, Wall Street, Chase Bank, JP Morgan, they just put money on Bitcoin. So I put money on Bitcoin. So look what I'm doing. I'm sophisticated. But in reality, the thought process behind it is totally different. Chris, you talk about that. Like this past week, I had my worst week. Right. And it was one of those weeks where I went down. I sold some stuff because I got stopped out, right? Because I trade with technical analysis. Then I readjusted. I went up, made more, and I was like, look how good I am, made my money back. The next day, I went back down even worse. And then the next day, I went down again. And I remember coming out of the week like, all right, so should I start trading options? So should I pick up more options this time? Because I can make more money with options if I read the charts and I can do the options. And then I stopped and I said, hold up. You know what's going to happen? I'm chasing now. That's it. I'm chasing. The market's doing like this, but I needed to do like this because I need to make back what I lost, right? And there is a mentality there. Even when, like you said, Chris, you walk through a casino the next day, I'm trading. Danny, I mean, how many times have me and you had the conversation about up and down, and next thing you know, right? Like you're lost, man. You're lost. So
it's a big deal because, and I say this all the time, right? Being a financial guy, that like, you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. And this is 100% why people struggle with this, is because they're not able to control their emotions. They're not able to control their mental when things like that happen. Like when you have a really bad week, do you have the knowledge, the mental fortitude, all of it to be like, nope, I'm going down the right path still. I'm going to lock in and just get tighter with what I'm doing and pay more attention. Or like most people, they say, this is not working. This hurts. This is scary. I'm going to go this way.
Yep. And then you start swinging for the fences.
That's it.
You start swinging for the fences. So, so not to shift it a little bit, but Danny, you said something to me, and I think I hit this pivot point a couple months ago. When you got involved, with crypto, you say you came in for the money, but you stayed for the technology, right? Talk to us a little bit about that, man.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a meme. Like it's a joke.
Oh, see, look, man, I gave you credit, and you could have just held on to it, man. Dang, Danny.
I got to know about this. None of that, but yeah, I mean that's a bit of a meme, but it's true. It's true. Like you get in because you're like, man, there's a lot of money to be made, but then you start realizing, after your research, and because if you start trading, you kind of look into reading the news, and just emerging markets, they solve a lot of problems that you never even knew existed. So on top of like reading about these companies and these projects and what they aim to solve, you're also learning about problems with how banks handle money, problems with, as far as software side, like double spending problems and scaling issues that they're having. And you start reading about these things, you start learning, and you start realizing about wow, this is an industry in itself. Like when people talk about data being the new oil, I mean, how else do you think you get into it? You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of people look at the volatility and they're disgusted. And like, okay, so I'll give you a funny story. I told my aunt, I was like, look, you know, I've told you guys like about Bitcoin. I told you guys about all these cryptocurrencies and everything. You haven't done anything about it. I have friends that have made money, you know, making investments based off of what I've advised them to do, but I don't give financial advice. Just a heads up. At all. It's just all for entertainment purposes. It's all for entertainment purposes. I don't know though. But so, you know, I was telling her, I was like, you know, why don't you just kind of invest? Ethereum was trading about $700 at the time. So I told her, I was like, why don't you just invest like $20, see what happens, right? And this was a time, and if you look right now, I mean, even though Ethereum's down, right? It ran all the way up to 2K. It's down to 1,400. She's still up 100%. So not too long ago, I was talking to her when Ethereum was sitting around like 1,600 or so. And I was like, so how's your investment doing? She's like, oh, my stocks are doing even better. But I'm like, well, duh. I mean, you only put $20. It's like, get out of here. And she's like, well, my stocks are doing so much better, but yeah, it's doing pretty good. But man, I've never seen a dip like that. I've never seen my stocks dip like that. And I'm just like thinking to myself, like, this is crazy, because she talks so much about making money on stocks and investing in stocks and things like that. And how much, you know, if you don't have an investment, you're pretty much irresponsible, right? But I'm over here like, yo, like, you don't even understand what you're investing in. And you don't even understand what's going on. You don't even understand the market cycles or any of that, or why there's volatility, or you just think it's gonna stocks go up. And then you start telling people like, oh, you're irresponsible if you don't own any stocks. Like, yo, like, you don't really, that's what I'm talking about. Like, this market got regular people feeling like they're geniuses, feeling like they're Warren Buffett. And that, I hate to break it to anybody that's listening and watching, is a definite sign of a bubble.
We will. You break it to them, I'll break it to them. Because again, this is what we do. Like, this is it. Like, people don't get it. Like, people don't get it. Like, I've been preaching this, and T knows I've been preaching this for the longest time. Like, people that are just blindly investing in the stock market in their 401k, IRA, mutual fund, garbage stuff that's passive investment. Like, the market will come down. Like, it's inflated. Like, the market will come down. You can ride high. It's that old mindset of like, you know, when people, was Warren Buffett say, like when people are greedy, be fearful, and when people are fearful, be greedy, right? Everyone's being greedy right now, and that's why the smartest of us are super fearful for them. Like, listen, like, this is going to be an issue if you don't pay attention to it. And again, they don't know. One of the things, and you know, many of you guys that listen know, like, being in the financial services space, like, I'm constantly talking to people about these types of things, their investments, their 401ks, their IRAs, all that type of stuff. And what they don't understand is, yeah, stocks do go up, but you might not have time to get that gain back when you lose so much. And if you're in that retirement red zone, if you're 50 plus, you might not have time to regain that money back in your portfolio. So again, understanding how to, you know, pay attention to all these different things and not let your emotions take over. Just like you said, Danny, like, it's the sign of a bubble, but people don't want to see things like that. When things are good, they forget that things can be bad, right? And it's just,
they want to forget. That's the truth, because they're traumatized, and that's the truth. It's like, you know, when you're traumatized by certain events, and you can be traumatized about a lot of different things. People, you know, the human emotion capacity is actually pretty fragile when you really think about it. And you would admit that if you ever started trading. Like, you don't think so? Put 10 racks into a trading account and let me know by the end of the week how you feel. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll give you my story right on top of that, because I got into all this crypto stuff in 2017 also, right? 2017, it hit my radar. I had a guy that I knew that was doing, right, like, started talking to me about altcoins, and we started looking at these, right, all these coins and how it was trading. And so put some money into it. I had some other people put some money into it. But what we didn't have, like I hear you have, Danny, is we didn't go deep. We didn't have the specialized knowledge to keep going down that rabbit hole. We thought it was just about This is going to make money. This is going to make money. This is going to make money. And that's not necessarily what happened. Matter of fact, like, we lost all of that, right? One of the companies that we had, one of the coins that we had invested in, like, wasn't a coin after a while or something like that. And then, back then, wallets weren't secure. You needed a key. Like, we had, somebody steal some money from us. Like, it was just all types of crazy stuff. And this is my first experience in it. And so when that happened, I was like traumatized. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this again. I'm out. Right? Like, this is just not a good
scam.
Feeling. Yeah, right? Like, this is not a good feeling. Like, I don't, and what it taught me, right? Because I'm educated enough to know that, like, I just was undereducated. That's all. I was just undereducated. I never went away from the fact that, like, this is what we were talking about. The blockchain technology is the thing that is going to move our society forward. It is the Web 3.0, Web 5.0, whatever people are calling it. Like, I believe that, and I've always believed that. I just wasn't educated enough on the currency side, on the crypto side, to really understand what was happening. So for a few years, I just swore off of it. I heard everybody doing. I was like, I'm not paying attention to none of this stuff. Like,
I remember trying to talk to you when I met Danny. Like, hey man, I met this guy named Danny. You was like, I did that. Lost money. No, thank you.
I'm out. Like, I was chopped because for real. Like, I lost. I owed people money. Like, I lost some relationships. Like, it was really not a good experience for me. Again, me just knowing I was undereducated and I won't make that mistake again. Not thinking that there's anything wrong with how people make money in the crypto trading side. But I was traumatized for a few years that I just wouldn't even touch the space. You know what I mean? And that's what happened to me. And I can understand, like, how that could happen to other people as well,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it happened to me as well. So I got burned pretty bad. And that's how I ended up at, meeting Terell. I had to go back to a job basically after a year of trying to make it on my own, day trading, thinking, because like I was saying, like, I got boiled like a frog. I thought I remember telling my boss, I was like, look, I'm not happy. I wasn't happy, because they were telling me that, like, look, man, you're kind of lacking. And I was like, well, I'm not really happy here, to be honest with you. And my mind is on different opportunities. And I told him, I was like, look, if I can make if I can get into 5 figures, then I pretty much made enough to where I could trade. I felt like, at the time, because of how the market was going, like, I could just trade indefinitely with that. And I ended up, like, tripling that, So I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm out, And yeah, man, I learned real quick after that it's a whole different ball game. Trying to go long in a bear market. And yeah, it definitely traumatized me. I kind of fell off for a while.
Danny, real quick, how much are you actually studying, like, during the time, like, after that happened, how much were you diving into, like, reading about the coins, reading about the founders, reading about companies? Like, how much were you, like, how many hours a week or a day were you diving in?
So the crazy thing is that every single, I'm one of those guys who's like, if I get into something, I'm into it. You know what I mean? Like I'll tell you pretty much anything and everything. And even if I don't know about it, if you bring it up, like, I probably know something, you know what I mean? Yeah. So none of the projects I invested in were shit coins. All of them right now are actually flourishing. It's just that's how the market cycles work, especially in an emerging market when you don't have belief, that type of I mean, I was told Terell this the other day, is that markets, they take the stairs up and the elevator down because fear is such a strong emotion. It's way stronger than greed or any of those other emotions, And once people start hitting that exit door, you like you were saying earlier, you'd be a fool to think that you won't be standing there holding some bags.
Exactly.
And so I don't want to say this to people and make them think like, oh, exactly what you were alluding to is that, like, oh, crypto's a scam, because it's absolutely the future, right? Absolutely. But the thing is, if you get into it, you need to understand that there's going to be extreme volatility, and you need to either be okay with, if you're going to hold, you really need to tell yourself, like, okay, if the coin loses, that means I believe so much in this that if I lose 90% of value, I'm not going to blink, because most likely that's probably what's going to happen if you just keep holding, right? And then, but if you learn how to trade, then that's a whole different ballgame in itself, because you're trying to master yourself, you're trying to master your emotions. But honestly, that is the best way to maximize your position, is to, and people ask me like, well, how do you buy the bottom? How do you sell the top? It's like, that's not what you're looking to do at all. You're buying weakness and you're selling strength. So you got to put in your mind that the people, when they start shitting the fans and like when they start falling off the cliff, that's what you're buying. You're buying that emotion. Oh my God. When you start hearing that, that's what you're buying. And then whenever everything's great, you're not really trying to pick the top. You're just saying, dude, I made a really good amount of money on this. I'm gonna start laddering out, right? And if you're really hardcore into it, and you know, you're one of those people who just has to have some type of skin in the game, you can always leave 25 to 10% in, because these type of runs, like you're looking at 100% plus runs. So even if you're leaving in 25%, you're taking out 75% of your gains. So I talked to a guy recently, and he was telling me about, no, man, you got to go all in. You got to go all in. And I was telling him, I was like, bro, like, you say that because you don't understand what it's like to have the type of money you're talking about at your fingertips and how to manage that.
Exactly.
Because if you really think like you're talking shit now and you only got like, you know, 5 figures in your account, what do you think you'll be thinking when it's, you know, a 7 figures where you want to be, and you got to pull the trigger on something? You're going to be stuck and frozen, especially if you're in a position that's been gaining that much. So these are things that people really don't think about. But you can go read on any newspaper how many people that have won the lottery stay rich.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They don't, right? And again, that's the scary part of this whole thing, right? The scary part of this whole thing is people are, after all of it, people will still be left traumatized. Like, they're going to, like you said, like, someone's going to be holding the bag. There's going to be a lot of people holding the bag, like, at some point. And then the big guys are going to win, right? Like, right? Like, that's just what starts to happen. And how do we get people through that place, right? Like, how do we get people to understand that, like, they really are just using their emotion in this, and it's not really the smartest thing to be doing, right? Like, how do we get that message to people so that they understand it? Is that our job to get that message to them, right? Should we just be letting people do whatever they do and just trading on emotion, or like, is there a way to get people to see this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's but that is a tall order. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Like, you like the journey, and I think Terrell can attest, and pretty sure you can too, because that journey is.
You gotta want to do it, right? Like, I mean, me and Danny's talk. Like, obviously, we talk often, and it's one of those things where, look, Danny talked to me, and he talked to others, but there's been different experiences, right? When me and Danny talked, he kept all this conversation right now, right? We're having, and I'm pretty logical and trying to be pretty objective. What I heard was, you're going to lose if you just put money and close your eyes and cross your fingers. Go study, go learn a strategy that you feel comfortable with. There's plenty of them, you know? And so I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out which one worked. He sent me a video series of different trainings where the guy goes through several different strategies, kind of opening your eyes to it. You kind of find your risk tolerance. Some strategies are more risky than others. Right now, I'm trading with a somewhat of a sophisticated strategy and thought process, and understanding my own risk tolerance.
Right.
That's one side of things, and that's not tooting my own horn, but that's why I try to objectively be. We talk about that a lot on the podcast. Other folks crippled with indecision. Right? And it's three folks crippled with indecision. Like, we have a coworker who got burned because he just played the lottery with it, got burned at 17, and we're literally like, hey, it's a good time now, but go study. Nah, I don't know. And this is what, like, Danny, we're at 16,000 at that point, right? Bitcoin, 16, 17,000, right? Then it's like, hey, it's up to 25. I don't know. No, I don't know. But then gets to almost, we're like at 40 something, and I'm like, hey, it's going to hit 50 based on this technical analysis, blah blah blah. He goes, what about the dog coin? So he wants back in, but he doesn't. It's all over again, right? It's indecision. Then it goes to that third person, which is just straight up, like we've been talking about. They get caught up in the FOMO, right? The fear of the missing out. And that part of it, you like, we all do it, right? Like, like I try to stay off of, like, I like Robin Hood, right? Because I like, it's simplistic. And you go down there, you look at the biggest movers and gainers, there is something about, hey, that's at 70%. Could it go to 140%? And you're watching it, and then you start looking at the chart for that day, and you're like, man, I think there's some more movement here. There's some more movement. And you get caught up, you get sucked in. As soon as you did it, and I've done it, like, let me go ahead and say it, I've done it about 3 times early on, and I lost my crap.
There's so many traders out there who are just like, oh my God, you went in on the 70% day. Hey, but I appreciate the honesty.
Hey, I'm just being honest, right? Like, you chase it, but like I was saying, like, Danny has this conversation, because Chris, you asked the question, do we tell people? Like, Danny is an evangelist, in my opinion, right? Like, you get around Danny and he talks to people, like, this same conversation, he always talked about the mindset first. And I think that drew me, because we always talk about mindset, having the right mindset for business and sports, right? We play college basketball, Chris, and the whole deal. And that is really where it starts. So that's one thing we want everybody to, because I'm pretty sure some people are like, oh, we talking crypto, they're going to tell us how to trade and all that. We could get into that. Like, we probably will have somebody on that. We can go through that. Hell, we could bring Danny back. But at the end of the day, it's all right here first. Right? It's all right here first.
Mindset and knowledge, right? Like, again, what I try to teach people is, like, investing, being a good investor is about having specialized knowledge in an area, right? Otherwise, it's gambling. Because if you aren't sure about what you're doing, you're not investing. Like, it's not going that way, right? So it's about, do you have the stomach, the mind, the mental fortitude to get through, control your emotions, right? Like, not let that take over. And then, do you have a specialized knowledge? Do you understand exactly where you're putting money? Like, when you talked to me about it, and I was open more to, like, hearing, like, okay, what are you doing? And then when you explained, I was like, oh, it's technical analysis. So you're actually studying something, right? Yeah. Like, that makes sense to me, because, like I said, when I come from, the world of, like, the traditional, Wall Street, the traditional kind of stocks and bonds, that world, like, I understand that side of technical analysis and technical trade and understanding, market cycles and those types of things and the candlesticks. And I understood that already. And I know that takes specialized knowledge. That takes hours of learning and studying. And then you can actually make a return, right? If people don't have that, if you don't have specialized knowledge in an area, if you're not sitting on Clubhouse like we talk about and listening to people over and over again, if you're not watching videos, if you're not diving deep, you're just gambling. You're just gambling with it, right? Like, because you have no idea how it moves, why it moves, how it goes, right?
Hold on, real quick. You can still dive in and still be gambling. Okay, so, like,
that is a perspective.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear that you can still dive in. You can still know everything, blah blah, this and that, and stray away from your plan, and you still be gambling. So it's.
Why do you say that, Danny? Like, I'm curious. How can somebody, like, because, again, me and Chris, we think very similar in a lot of ways. So we get objective. So when we learn something, like, we get past, like, I guess it's the mental part. Like, why do you say you can dive in, know it, and still gamble?
Because emotions are just, it surpasses knowledge. It really does. And, a good trader will, we talk about the drawdown, right? You and I, when we talk about that, we talk about, no matter how good you are, you're going to have a drawdown where it's like 4, 5, 6, 7 trades. You're just going to pull you under. Things like that. And you're also going to have where you're 4, 5, 6, 7 trades where you're putting on more and more size because you feel good. And then all of a sudden that 8th, 9th trade where you're putting on way too much, that's the one that does it all away. So you can still be pretty knowledgeable, still have risk management and all that, and just slip up because, it just, you and you probably know this already. You can outdo 6 months of trading in one bad trade. And that's and a lot of that has a lot to do with you're on a streak, you feel good, you feel like you're going to keep going, and your strategy is unstoppable. You know what I mean? Like, you have that confirmation bias that gets built up. That's the thing about the market, and that's what the big boys know. If you look at big hedge fund traders, they're not going in with leverage. You know what I mean? They're building portfolios that are properly hedged. So when it comes to huge money, you know, and of course they do have some prop traders that trade on leverage and things like that, where they, you know, but that's what those guys do. They're scalping. But the main managers, they're building portfolios, and those guys are within that portfolio too. You know what I mean? That's the high risk. That's for the high risk tolerance guys. So just, you got to keep that in mind. Is that,
what would you say, Danny?
What do you mean?
What would you say, like, as we kind of wrap this up, man? Like, what would you say to manage that? Because we talked a lot about mindset, and I know that's where your heart is with it. Like, how can somebody manage their emotion especially in the crypto space, where it's so volatile, and they're thinking about, and they're seeing all this excitement, they're seeing dogs go to the moon because Elon Musk says it. Like, how do you manage all of that in this time?
There's a few things you should stick by, which is the first thing is, if you don't know about it and the price is the reason why you're looking at it, it's probably a bad idea. We talk about that, right? If you don't know about it already and the price is the reason why you're looking at it, then you need to watch it for a good while, because most likely that's not a good entry point, because you don't hear about it until it's done something, right? You have to remember that the news is reactionary, and then they build narratives around the price action to sell you a narrative. A lot of times that's what's going on, right? And the narrative is not necessarily what's going on for most people. It's a small percentage of people that's experiencing that narrative. Oh, GameStop went to $500. People were making millions. And most people I knew lost money on those trades. So just keep that in mind, is that the news is reactionary, that if you're looking at the price, it's probably not a good time to get in. Like, put it on your watch list, you know, see what happens, but don't get in until you see something that aligns with your plan. Always define an exit point, and always define a take profit point. Because if you don't have those 2 points, the only thing that will take you out of a trade is a pain of a loss that is so great that you can't handle it anymore. And that is the truth, because if you really think about it, it's like you're doing good, and then it starts falling. You're like, oh no, I've seen it, because you've seen it bounce so many times. Then it falls through a level. No, it's fine. 40% correction, no big deal. It's gonna bounce right here. And all of a sudden, you're at a loss. You're like, it's gonna bounce at my entry point, no big deal. And then all of a sudden, you're 50% under because you've been in for so long, right? And then that's the point where you're like, I can't take it anymore.
Can't do it.
Yeah. Fuck this, it's a scam. It's like you tell yourself that it's a scam, but it's like you scammed yourself. Like, that's what it is at the end of the day. You didn't recognize what was going on. You took a bet on something you didn't understand. You scammed yourself.
That's so good. That's so good. Like that, man. It's a mindset game. You hit the nail on the head, Danny. Right? It's a mindset thing. Like, it's an emotional thing. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money, right?
Yeah. Just remember those 2 things, guys. Don't spend too much time trying to force a trade, which is basically what the first one's saying. The second one is just define your exit points, man. And then over time, you'll find better exit points. Yeah. You know, that's really, I talk about this with Terell all the time. It's like, you know, when you're trading, it's like you're just learning when to get in, when to get out. And if you only get in, it's like, what I tell Terell, like, trading is kind of like fighting, where it's like you've seen people throw punches, you've seen people, you know, so you think you can do it, you know, because when you're in front of the mirror, you know, shadow boxing, you know, it looks good. Put somebody in front of you and let them hit you back, and you get popped in the face one time, see what happens.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Mike Tyson, baby. Mike Tyson.
That's it. Yeah. That's good. That's good stuff, Danny. Man,
good. I like it, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think. No, I was gonna say. I think that's it, man. I think Danny came in and he crushed it. He gave us a lot around that mindset, and I think that's a great way just, for all our listeners, how we want to, like, how it's so fitting to open up our podcast, this series with that, right? Because it doesn't get away from the core principal things. Like I was talking to a business owner who had grown his company, cashed out 60 million and, was doing really well. And now he's just kind of helping other folks out, make money in the industry. And he pretty much said, hey man, at the end of the day, business is business. And I guess for our podcast, we can say mindset is mindset, regardless of what industry you're in, whatever, what you're trying to do, whether we talk about marriage, we talk about education, we talk about career, we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about trading, we talk about new technologies, emerging technologies, right? Mindset is mindset. And if we make sure that we have the right mindset and we have the knowledge and we're managing those emotions, you can be successful. Right now, it doesn't mean you can do everything. You should do everything, but you can do anything that you want to do in that space for the most part, right? If you keep those things in order. So that's where I would leave it at on my side of things. Chris, any final thoughts on your side?
No, man, this has been awesome. I'm glad we could start this series. Danny, I appreciate you jumping on and dropping some wisdom on everybody. This is definitely something. The reason why we started this, again, crypto, blockchain, new technology type of series, is because this is emerging, right? Like no matter what, whether you come in, and this is what T and I were talking about yesterday, like whether you're trading, whether you're going to start getting into NFTs or other things on the blockchain, or creating businesses or whatever it's going to be, this is going to be something that you're going to need to understand. And there's a lot of different opinions out there. There's a lot of different information out there. And, again, I think we hit the nail on the head today that a lot of it is just people's emotions. A lot of it is people just wanting to hit it big. They want to, right? That lottery mentality. That's really what you're seeing and reading and hearing, is just a lot of that. And if we can bring it back to a more practical place for everybody to say, hey, listen, like that's great, but just like Danny left you off with, right? Don't force trades, don't force yourself into things, and then know when you're getting in, know when you're getting out, right? Like understand what you're doing and what the goal is, right? The last thing I'll add, because I add this for everyone, is it's really about vision also, right? Like where are you going? Like what are you doing it for?
Yeah.
There's 8 million ways to make money in this world, like 8 million ways. There's so many ways to make money. I know so many people that make money. Which one's going to be for you? Why? Right? Why? What are you trying to get to? What do you think this is going to lead to? That also should be a part of your equation. It's one of the reasons I don't trade. I believe in it. It's not my lane because I don't want to technically and like analyze things. I just don't want to. I don't think it's wrong. I know you guys make money, like I get it.
Yeah.
But I just know that's not my lane because I do other things. But at the end of the day, right, like you have to come to that conclusion for yourself. Don't just hear the hot thing or, oh, I know that person that makes money. Oh, they do this and they make money. That's not the way to go. What's your vision? Where are you headed? And that becomes it. So as always, we end with like a question of the day, question of the week, right? So question of the day that I'm thinking of is, for all the listeners and people out there, are you dabbling in crypto, right? Like, are you trading right now? Are you getting in? Like, what's your familiarity with it? Do you just, listen to the hype, look at the memes and stuff like that? Or like, what is it that you guys do in this
How
space?
deep are you in Dogecoin is the question of the day. And what price and did you exit?
How deep are you into it?
So we have a part A and a part B.
Part B.
This week, how deep are you into Dogecoin? That's right. And yes, we will not judge you, whatever your answer is, but feel free to hit us.
We've been there.
We've all been there. We've all been there. So feel free to hit us up. You guys know where to find me and T. Danny, where can they find you? If people want to reach out, where can they find you? IG really. It's my first and last name, which Danny Luong, DANNYLU0NG. Perfect.
Zero, so yeah.
Perfect. So we will, guys, hit him up. Obviously, he's got some knowledge. He'll be able to help you out, I'm sure, with anything that you need. But again, he's giving you all the, the basic stuff right now, which is just get your mind right? Get your mind right first, and we'll figure the rest out. So we're signing off. It's been a great one, Danny.
It's been a good one.
We appreciate you, man.
Danny, you just went down in history.
Appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely.
It was fun. It was fun. It's good talk. I love talking about this stuff. So any chance I get, it's a great chance.
Hey, depending on how long the series goes, we'll bring you back on, right? We'll bring you back on. We'll dive deeper, and maybe we get some technical stuff to give some value to some people. How about that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when Dogecoin goes to $5 and I make my millions, I'll bring you back on to say, remember what I told you.
I got you, bro.
Good stuff, guys. All right, we're signing off for the Perspective Podcast. Until next time, stay well. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Perspective Podcast. We hope this conversation made you think a bit deeper, gain some insight, or even possibly even gain a brand new perspective. If you did enjoy it, do us a favor, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Anchor, or anywhere else you stream. Leave a review to help more people experience these conversations and potentially change their perspective as well. And lastly, as always, T and I want you to connect with us. So follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can find us just by using our names. And there we get a chance to hear your perspective. Until next time, God bless.